welcome to the Up Podcast, raw real talk on everything young parenting.
From self-care, co-parenting, and family planning, to balancing school, work, relationships, and goals.
Together, we're challenging society's assumptions and building a safe and supportive community for young parents.
One honest conversation at a time. So join us on the journey.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Thank you for joining us on another Yup podcast. As always, I'm your co-host Brandy.
And I'm Divine.
And today we have a super special guest, a young mom who has a really cool experience, who has two little ones. Her name is Leandra, and we will let her introduce herself. And so Leandra, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Leandra. I'm really excited to be here today with you guys, share my experience with you all. I know this is a safe space for young parents, everything parenting, and honestly, the parenting journey is a wild ride, and I'm excited to be sharing my experience with you all, and yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for joining us, Leandra. For those who don't know, me and Leandra have a very special connection. We do share a child's father, but we'll get into that.
Father, multiple. Y'all each got one. Children's
father. Sorry, corrected. But we'll definitely get into that tea in a bit. But to start things off, can you tell us a little bit about your parenting journey and kind of where you are now?
Yeah, so I got pregnant at the age of 18. I was a senior in high school. I gave birth when I was 19. I was just freshly graduated. That was a big experience, especially like hiding like my pregnancy my last year. I just didn't want anyone to think anything of me. I definitely felt like I gave up on myself. Just a whole bunch of emotions, being young and not knowing what to do, especially not having the most close relationship with my family. So it was kind of awkward or kind of like scary to tell them, like I'm pregnant, especially since I was still in their household. It was like kind of I was going to be a parent, but I was still being parented. So I still had to follow their rules and things like that. But I was bringing a baby into the whole situation. So yeah, it was definitely experience. My son is now 6. We had a long, long journey ahead of us, but the last few years have been amazing. He's an amazing kid, full of energy, very sweet, very outgoing. I could say he's very silly. He loves his family, things like that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And thank you for sharing that. I think, a lot of people can relate to the idea of parenting while being parented and just kind of like navigating this whole thing. I remember when my daughter was young and I had moved back home for a little bit, and I was like, it was just every little thing, right? This has to stay clean, or this has to this. And I'm like, I have a whole toddler. She's not going to keep those things clean. Or I need to like take a minute. And so, yes, I think that that's really tricky, especially when you're still navigating being at home and following rules, but also trying to set your own boundaries. Divine talks about this on the website where it's like, let me parent my child, right? Like, don't undermine my discipline. Don't come in and change things or whatever. And so, yes, thank you for sharing that. I would love to get more into that later or on another day. But another thing that kind of comes up for young parents specifically, sometimes is we don't know what lies ahead, right? Like sometimes we, like you said, you were in high school. Sometimes we are just going through the day to day. We don't know what our parents went through. We don't know how to parent or how to do whatever. And sometimes the plans that we think that we have or the plans that we make for ourselves, like our birth or our breastfeeding journey or how we're going to discipline or whatever, or our relationships, they change. And so did you experience any sort of changes in your plans for parenting? And if so, what were they and how did you navigate those changes of plans?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of changes. Things never really go how you expect in parenting. You can say a lot of things like, oh, that would never be me or that would never be my child, but
Yeah.
you can't ever put a never on parenting.
Mhm.
Um, you can try 1,000 different ways to do something, and if it's gonna come out that way, then that's what it is. You just have to keep rolling with it. I can definitely say for my first pregnancy, my plans were to breastfeed the whole time until he was 1 at least. That actually went as planned. There was a lot of mental challenges that came with that. I felt like he was on top of me 24/7. He was exclusively breastfed, so no bottle except for when I was like out at school. So that was a little hard on myself, um, especially when it came to somebody else watching him while I was out and the baby would like refuse the bottle. So I'd had to cut what I was doing and hurry up and come back home so he could get milk. So thankfully I could go a year. I went actually 14 months with my first. Um, it was definitely a long roller coaster ride. Emotions were high, low, in between. It takes a lot of energy from you. And with my second, my plan was to breastfeed for the same amount of time, and that did not go as planned. Uh, this time around, my milk supply had plummeted so much that he was not able to get like not even like 4 ounces from me. And mind you, he was drinking like 5 or 6 at the time. So I had to end up supplementing, and that kind of broke my heart. I just felt like I wasn't giving him all the nutrients that I could, even though I knew I was trying, but it was just the mental, just bringing me down, saying I can't like provide for him. But like that comes with, the changes. You just have to roll with it. You can't let it bring you down. It'll definitely put you in a state of darkness if you let it. You just have to stay positive and keep yourself lifted and just keep going. Then and don't look back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
Okay.
love how you kind of were able to navigate it while also kind of having that positive mindset. Because I know that is way easier said than done, especially just, I know for myself, I struggle with like accepting realities that I don't want. And specifically with breastfeeding, like I always had the dream that I wanted to breastfeed. And then being, 16, 17 and then hearing all of these things, all I heard were rumors about saggy breasts. And I was like, nope, like that did it for me. And like I immediately felt like so remorsely guilty, after the fact that it was way too late for me to even try. So I can't even imagine, experiencing, the beautiful side of that and then it kind of feel like it kind of was stripped from you and like took in that experience from you. So thank you for shedding light on that. Um, to kind of change gears, but still as far as like changes in your life, did you have any like family changes? I know you mentioned like you were very nervous and anxious about like sharing it with your family. Like how was that process of like finding out you were pregnant, sharing it with your family, and was it any different from your second pregnancy?
So yeah, I feel like my relationship with certain family members kind of became very distant. I kind of became like the talk of the family, becoming pregnant so young. But I can say that it did bring me closer to my parents. They were definitely there for me when I needed them when it came to the baby. Um, and as far as the second one, it really didn't change too many relationships. I from the first one, I like already experienced this. So I made like the boundary, like if my baby's not welcome or he's not welcome in an environment, then I won't be there. So I had already put those boundaries up. So when he came, I already had the people that were like okay with my boundaries when it came to my son. And the relationships this time around didn't change very much as far as from the first. The first, it was like I lost a lot of friends, especially because I wasn't able to hang out with them anymore. Like go to football games, go to parties, things like that. I couldn't do anymore, especially that I was a single mom. It was kind of like back and forth all the time. So it came to a point where like I had to put myself and my child first. And, um, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had to put myself first and my son. So I lost a lot of relationships there versus with my second one, where I had already had those boundaries up and I already had removed myself from relationships or friendships that I knew weren't going to work with my new family.
That's a good point. I think people don't realize how isolating sometimes being a young parent is. And it's the little things that you don't think about, like going to prom or going to football games or whatever. And even if you can still do those things and like you have a support network and stuff, they don't talk about the guilt that you have for leaving, or the fact that then if you're breastfeeding now, your boobs are full and you can't even enjoy yourself because you need to pump or you need to feed, or you're out and you hear a sound and that makes your milk let down and all the things, right? Like they don't talk about that kind of stuff. Um and they also don't talk about, we obviously don't know what our kids remember. My child does not remember me leaving her for small amounts of time. But one thing that stuck with me, and this is so kind of a little bit left field, but I just want to share this because it's kind of funny. So when my daughter was like 3 or 4, I went out for my birthday, and I never went out, right? So I went out for my birthday. I came back, picked her up, and she was literally sitting up at my aunt and uncle's house, sitting up. The TV's on. She's asleep. She has her backpack on, but she's sitting up. Everybody else is in their room, sleep, whatever, except for my aunt's on the couch with her. And I was like, what happened? Like, why didn't she go lay down with her cousins? Like, whatever. And they were like, no, she just kept saying, my mom is coming back. And she would not move. Like, she had to have her backpack on by the door, ready to go. And it kind of broke my heart, right? Like, I was like, see, my baby needs me. Like, I can't go anywhere because she's waiting for me. Another time she was at my best friend's mom's house, and when we got home from a concert, she sleep on the like floor in front of the door with her backpack on. And her mom was like, she wouldn't come to the couch, nothing. Like I just brought her a pillow and blanket because she wouldn't leave the door because she knew you were coming back. And I'm like, see, I can't leave my baby. So people don't think about the isolation that comes from the guilt of leaving your child with someone even for a few hours, finding childcare, and then just even when you get there, how are you received? You know? So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to kind of I want to tell Divine, like, that's okay that that's the choice that you made, because I was not breastfed and my mom had the same thoughts at 16 when she had me, and I'm fine.
But you know what? All that fear I had of saggy breasts, and they still went down. So it's
Girl,
it did not even matter.
girl, can we collectively sing, do your boobs hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Parenthood, they still go south
Okay.
regardless.
Yep.
Yes. So don't feel bad. But again, kind of switching gears again, I wanted to talk just about, can we just talk about co-parenting? And can we talk about, and I say that while I take a deep breath, because co-parenting is so interesting. And we all have our collective journeys there. We're all single parents. We all have our feelings. Our kids are all navigating waters differently. But can we just talk about like what it looks like, especially for us as young women and young moms, to have sometimes this fairy tale of like, in some people's cases, it is this, continue on with this pregnancy will keep our relationship together. Or maybe it is, it'll fix some of the issues that we had, or our hope, maybe, um, our hope is that the person will change, right? Or their family will change, or we will change, or whatever. And also just knowing, like, I was having this conversation with my daughter the other day, because when she was asking me questions about like the choices that I made to choose her father, and one thing I said is that we were both really young and both unhealed, right? Both looking for things, seeking validation in things, and I had foggy mirrors. Like, there's no way I would have seen all the red flags because I was just seeking like love and attention. So, I share that with her now, and just knowing that like now the person I am now would not necessarily choose some of those qualities, right? But that's not where I was when I had her. So, can we just talk about your co-parenting journey and kind of um, the feelings that you had, the support system that you had navigating, transitioning from either being in a relationship or just, finding out you're pregnant and then being a single mom.
Yeah, so when I found out I was pregnant, I was kind of like really shocked. So took the test, I took it to him, I showed it to him. Um, his reaction was very numb. Um, it kind of threw me off a little bit. So I'm like, it wasn't the reaction I wanted, you know, um, that reaction that we all get, everyone gets in the video. They're like
Yeah.
they're jumping, they're happy, they're so excited. Um, I didn't get that reaction, so I was very like stale. Um, so we were together for I would say like 2.5 years, and then we started like co-parenting. The beginning it was okay, it wasn't terrible. We would text here and there. He would come pick up his son. As time went on, it got a little more difficult. I would say um, not having that, not being able to put your feelings as um, a spouse aside, or like even like putting it aside for a second for your kids.
Right.
Um, it became a little bit more difficult, so we just started going through a third party. That was not the best, having to communicate with one person and then have it go from one person to the next person, and then it's like a delay. It'll be like 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and you're not hearing back. So it's kind of frustrating having to go through somebody else and having that delay and not being able to directly know what's going on. Um, Looking back at it now, I would never do a third party again. Um, I was young. I was very young, so it was kind of like I was intimidated. So if someone said like, it's through me now, that's what I went with.
Yeah.
I kind of didn't put my foot down. I was very laid back. So they took that and ran all over with. So yeah, the third party I would never do again. Um, when co-parenting, I feel like it should be directly to the parent. That's who you had your child with. It's easier, quicker, more effective if the other parent is willing to do the same and put the child first. Um, After I started to put my foot down saying no third parties, it kind of became a problem. It made it seem like I directly wanted to be in contact with the other parent, just to kind of like um, insert myself back into a relationship, which was not at all ever the case. It was always
Yeah.
ever supposed to be about the kids,
Yeah.
well, our kid, and it spiraled into something else that was out of my control. So at that point, I just had to remove myself from the situation and also remove my child so he wouldn't have to see what was going on, because it got so bad to a point that when we were doing drop off and pickups, there was shouting, there was screaming, there was hands, like flinging, and like when people talk with their hands, your
Yeah.
child doesn't know. They just think, oh, look, they're like about to fight. Kids
Yeah.
don't know any better. So they start to get scared. And that's something I didn't want my son to have to experience, because
Yeah.
he did experience a little bit of trauma with, like, yelling and like just things that a child shouldn't see. Um, Now to this current day, our co-parenting is very non-existent. Um, I have full custody of my child, so um, it's been okay. Um, there will be times that my son does ask about his parent. I just reassure him, no, your parent loves you.
Yeah.
Um, when you get older, you'll be able to, communicate yourself, and you can decide from there what you want to do.
Yeah.
You can decide if you want to communicate with your other parent on your own time.
Yeah.
Um, and from there, I'm pretty sure he'll see why, as a parent, I did what I did.
Yeah. Can I jump in just real quickly? Divine, I know
Yeah.
you'll have something to say, but I just want to say there's something so big about what you just said, Leandra, because it's one thing to have our own feelings about another person. And even when I said earlier that, like, I share that we were both unhealed, I'm sure that my child's other parent also feels the same way, that he probably would not have chosen me for various reasons in a healed state, right? But to remind our children that their other parent loves them, even if the love looks different, is so important, because we never want our kids to operate from a place of lack. I'm sure that we can all agree that we made decisions in our youth from lack of whatever, right? Like seeking validation for whatever, and that comes from lack. For me, it was just kind of having, relationship issues, and kind of had a single mom and all the things, right? And so there was a lot of lack. And so I never want my child, I never want our children to operate from a place of lack. But when another person or another family member adds in, they're on top of the who you already have, right? Not filling a void that you didn't have. And so I think what you said is really great, because reminding them that love looks differently. They may not love or be able to relationship right now. It's not your responsibility to relationship with them or make them ready. But when they are ready, just know that just because we're different doesn't necessarily mean that they love you any less or you're not deserving of that love. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you as well. I definitely think it's so interesting, like how co-parenting dynamics can be so different, even for like people in the same party. Because I know for me, a third party is very necessary.
Mhm.
But on my end, like I definitely believe that person needs to be responsible. I don't think they are in need of a third party. Like they need to take accountability for their responsibilities. But for me and my peace, I have to have a third party because I get just super anxious and reactive. And I just know that wouldn't be a best situation for myself or my daughter. And there were also many seasons where I had to remove my daughter as well. And she is now at an older stage where she can, pay mind to why I did things, where she doesn't necessarily need to ask because she can see it for herself. So definitely have hope that your baby will be able to honor you and thank you for all that you do. Because I do try to be very realistic with my daughter and transparent that yes, love looks different, but you deserve the world and you should not settle for anything less than. So I think that's super important that we instill that in our children, because I know for myself in my adolescence, I settled, I accepted less than the bare minimum, not even thinking that there was a bare minimum available
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And I would never in a million years want that for my daughter. Like you said, Brandy, trying to fill voids, just settling for anything, thinking that that's acceptable because it's not on any level. And I feel like that love comes from, your parents first. So that is where they learn that from. So thank you for shedding light on that. Um, Now, I know you also mentioned that you do have full custody of your baby. I'm definitely interested in knowing like how that process was for you mentally, physically. Like, was it a very long process? I know for me it was very short. So, yeah, how was that process for you?
Yeah, so I was scared to go to court. They make court sound like this like scary thing. Um, but honestly, it's one of the best things I ever did for myself and my son, especially for my sanity.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to find how to start the process was the hardest for myself, because I had really no guidance. It was just me by myself, just trying to navigate. So, I just went down, found some paperwork, like some information of how to file, filled out the paperwork, filed it. I got a letter within a couple days, and we had a conference. First conference, there was a no-show, so got rescheduled. Second one, we did have a conference. It got ended fairly quickly because it kind of got heated. Um, so it ended there. Then we had a third conference, um, which was a pretty lengthy one, because there were some legal things that needed to be checked up on. It got pushed to like a court hearing. Um, Court hearing, he the other parent did not show for the hearing, so I got granted full custody. So kind of just made it easier for myself. I know there are other parents that go through like really hard battles. So what I can say is just keep your head up and keep going, because you know what's best for your child, and you just got to keep fighting for it, and they'll see that you're not giving up and you have a purpose and you want this really, you really want this for your child. So they're gonna see that you are trying your best to be there, and you'll get sometimes you'll get what you want, and sometimes you'll get something that you didn't really want. But you just have to keep pushing yourself to show them why this is the reason that you want this for your child. It's what's in their best interest.
Yeah.
You just really have to keep pushing, especially with the courts. Like I said, but like for my situation, it was fairly easy. There was a no show, so I was automatically granted that full custody, which has been amazing. My life has been at peace. I don't have to accept any disrespect.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting to think about court and just what that journey. I know again we all have different journeys. I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did for you and that it wasn't, this long drawn out process. I know Divine has had different processes and I've certainly had different processes, and I can say, like, even though it in retrospect it wasn't a long process, I had a lot of anxiety. Like I still to this day sometimes have to remind myself, like, it's okay, whatever, because just the thought of like having to walk into a court building for anything at
Mhm.
all gives me anxiety, right? And I think it's because there was just so much surrounding that, and
Mhm.
you can feel so much that you're doing. This is something that I say too, and I'm gonna take full accountability because I feel like that's important as parents, right? One thing that I say is that I did the best that I could at the time. I stand by every decision that I made. Whether it was the right decision or not, I stand by that decision because in the moment I knew that I was doing the best for my daughter. Now, as somebody who has like learned and grown and, matured and all the things, what would that look like now? I have no clue, right? But I think that going through it and being like young and not really knowing, having like your child's life in the hands of somebody who doesn't know your child is wild to me. right? And so being in those things and having people tell me, having like mediators and stuff tell me that it's not appropriate for my daughter to be in gymnastics at the time for, whatever. That's too much at her age. I'm like, but do you understand that the school is full? Like she was on a waiting list to get in that class, which means there are hundreds of other children her age doing the exact same thing, but it's not appropriate for her. Why? Do you get what I mean? And so it was things like that where it's like, how are you, somebody who doesn't know her, doesn't know me, making an assumption about her life and just having like our lives at the whim of someone else was just really hard. But thank you for sharing that. I think it's important for people to know wherever you are on the spectrum, whether it's anxiety producing or it is, totally chill or you have the support network. I had a great support system. But still, like that was uncharted territory for a lot of my support system. So,
Mhm.
or they had their own baggage from that process, right? And so it wasn't like I needed to be in therapy probably during that.
Yeah, and I think it's important really quick to add that like that anxiety never leaves your body. Like that process it will continue to always be up in the air until your child is 18. Like I had to go back to the court multiple times for relocation just to get approval for moving and I already have full and sole custody. But just the fear that someone could dismiss that motion or if I don't go as far as filing that could, cause any kind of legal and custody changes on my end, like that is so fearful,
It's
especially after
scary.
you've gotten to the point where you are at now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I can definitely agree with that. That is one of my biggest, like, I still have anxiety, like, oh my God, like anything can change in any second. Like with parenting, anything can change in a second. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And we always want to shed light on the raw and the real. That's what we are, right? We're raw, real talk on all things young parenting. And so the raw and the real is that it doesn't leave. My child is about to be 14 years old and I still am like in knots at certain thoughts of things or, when I get certain like messages or whatever. But one thing is that if I can give any advice like therapy or support system, finding support groups is super important because navigating that by yourself and trying to deal with your own emotions and deal with your child's emotions and maybe you didn't get what you wanted, what you thought was best, right? And so then your child is having to be in a situation that you don't want them to be. We talked about this around the holidays where it's like some people have to share, not have to. Some I want to rephrase that. Some people share custody over the holidays and that's hard, right? And sometimes it's hard for children too. And so take care of yourself. One, reach out to us and our community and all of the things because you shouldn't have to do that alone. But speaking of not being alone, Divine alluded to at the beginning of this that you all have some things in common. And so I would love for you all to just talk about this process. And Divine and I have a lot of conversations. And so I knew about you and your wonderful, beautiful son well before I met you. Um, I Dynasty is my internet niece. Like she can do no wrong. I've never met her in person, but she can do no wrong. She she's a star in my eyes.
Mhm.
And her mom better not pipe up at
Mhm.
her because she's my niece, right?
Right.
So the idea when she told me that Dynasty had asked to see her brother, I was like, oh my goodness, that is so special. And I remember, just Divine's process getting to that point. So I'd love for you all to talk about kind of how you all came together for your kids, even having this shared experience and having whatever feelings, came up with that. But like you came together for the kids, and what advice do you have for people who are navigating that, like wanting to reach out to, their child's siblings, parents, but maybe they're nervous to do so?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you want to start, Leandra? You want me to
I was
start?
gonna say I could start off with like where I was, because this is at the point where we were not yet in contact. A couple
Mhm.
years ago, I tried to reach out to Divine for my son because he was, I want to see my sister. I want to see my sister. He loves his sister. So I'm like, all right. I text old phone number, no longer active. So I figured I'm like, I don't know what's the next step here. I knew where you guys previously lived, but I didn't want to just like show up
Pop
like a
up.
creep. So I'm like, okay, next, I think I try to look up your mom on social media. She came up. I kind of like scrolled through it, but I believe it was like an old Facebook. I had sent her a message and asked if, you can reach out. Didn't hear anything back, so I was like, I'm just gonna let it die out for now, and we'll see what happens, maybe in a couple months. Um, Worst comes to worst, I'll show up and see, like, hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Divine came along, so I don't know, you could take it.
Yeah, I mean, a journey it was. It definitely took a long time to get to the point we are in now, especially in the early stages of things. But I think just a piece of advice, like it really does come down to wanting the best interest of your child. I will say, I don't think my mom received that Facebook message because she would have told me. But also at that time, like, I may have not been like open to that. I know like we did have some positive conversations kind of before I really isolated myself from the world. But truth be told, like in that season, I feel like we had our own things going on, and then I just felt like it was not my responsibility to withhold these relationships. At that point, now it's a little different because I felt like I maybe had to go through somebody to do that, and now I don't feel like I have to do that, or I would rather not do that. So when my daughter asked to see her brother, I did take it upon myself to reach out to her. And we connected, our kids reconnected, and yeah, it was positive from there. But even just early on, despite, little like things that I may have not liked or appreciated, it really did come down to realizing, at least on my end, that I was able to see, through all of our differences, that you did have Dynasty's best interest. And at the end of the day, as a real woman, I could only respect that. Because it got to a point where you were doing things that the other parent wasn't even doing. I remember like you dropping off like Gap sweatsuits and different things for my daughter that we've never received on that other side. So it got to a point where I could only just humble myself and, allow you to be there for her. Cause I know that had your own relationship with my daughter before you had your son. Um, so it definitely got to a point where I could put my differences aside and acknowledge that you did care about my daughter. So yeah, I think that is what allowed me to be as open as I am now to the situation. Knowing that my daughter is older, she can communicate her feelings, and she loves her brother. So that definitely wouldn't feel right for me to strip that away from her, especially because she was at a point where she could communicate that. So now it's like my responsibility and puts pressure on me to, do the right thing for her. So yeah, she was very excited to see her little brother. And yeah, that is how that went.
Yeah. I
We're
could
on the podcast.
And now you're on the podcast.
I said we definitely came a long way. I can accept what I did when I was younger. That kind of a lot of things that happened when I was younger kind of were still eating away at me as an adult. And, us being able to communicate, especially getting the kids together, it kind of mended something in my heart. Because it felt like um, when I took my son and, got full custody, I felt like I ripped a part of his
Mm.
life away. And one of those being his sister, because his sister was like his best friend. So getting them together was like such a like heartfelt moment for me, especially because we did a couple of times bump heads, especially I did things that I knew were not right, especially looking back now, having my own kids. I'm like, yeah, that would not fly. So I apologized for that, because I don't know what I would do. I would be like, girl, this, yeah. But the way you went about things wasn't like crazy. You know, there's girls out there like the baby mamas go at it like they be fighting and stuff, and I'm just glad I didn't go through I didn't go through that, because I don't think, maybe, no, I don't know. I don't know if we would ever be able to sit in a room like how we did with the kids, and like, try to like at least get to know each other and stuff like that. I'm just glad we didn't go down that road. We did bump heads a couple times, but we're here today, so
Yeah.
obviously we got over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do really want to say thank you for your apology. I definitely sincerely accept that. And, I forgive you. I forgive myself. I'm also sorry. Because there were definitely times that I was petty on my end in different ways. I don't think we would have ever gotten to the extent of like putting hands on one another, although, ooh, I may have wanted to. All hands and toes. But I'm glad that it didn't get to that extent. Um, yeah. So I'm proud of the both of us for even during those younger times not letting it get to that. But I don't think it ever would have. We had, you know, a I would say a minor relationship before, kids even came into involvement. So there was always history. And I think that is what ate me up, because it was like a respecting and also like new territory. Like, how do I navigate this? It's my first time. And then it got to a point where like I can only dwell over what I can control. And when my daughter's not in my household, I can't control it as much as I would like to. So I'm very proud of the both of us for, despite everything, we handled it, I would say, pretty wellly. And then I'm proud of us now for getting to the point where we are now. Two independent queens, similar interests, similar stories. So yeah, I know our children will be very proud and very happy that, we were able to be this way for them, and then also for the both of us, because it definitely was very heartfelt and healing on my end, reconnecting with you and your son, seeing my daughter, get her brother back. Because usually, like, when it comes down to her missing the other side of the family, it's always, her brother is her main source of family. So they've been like sending each other things in the mail. She literally has a package here I need to send. Sending each other funny, crazy videos over the phone, just a mess. They are honestly like the same but different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely glad that we got to the point where we are now.
Yeah.
Y'all too. Y'all are a great example of what a relationship could be. And I think that I also want to give you and myself and everybody out there grace, because one thing that both of you said is that there was healing that needed to happen, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes when we have children in our adolescence and we're already navigating like hormones and life, and when we're teenagers and like young adults, everything is an inconvenience, right? Like every minor inconvenience is like world ending. And so I think none of us really had a chance. Like what I'm hearing is none of us really had a chance to heal from whatever childhood stuff or from whatever teenage stuff or whatever stuff we needed to heal from prior to having children. And so parenting while healing is sometimes difficult, right? Because you put yourself on the back burner to raise your child and make sure your child's okay. And so I think I want to give us all and anyone out there listening grace, because I think I can say, my child's father was married at one point and I put her through the ringer. She was very nice. She was very nice. She really cared about my daughter, but I put her through it, and I'm being honest because I just felt like you're trying to step in and be a mom, and like how dare you, and you're over, like I
Mhm.
didn't really know what was happening over there, and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, you must be feeding him stuff. Like there was just so much unhealed mess that I had. And maybe some of that stuff was true. But I never got a chance, like that relationship didn't, last, but I never really had a chance to just sit and be like, you know what, thank you. Like you all are able to do, like, thank you for caring for my child. And thank you for being her safe space in a space that she felt uneasy sometimes, right? Like, thank you for looking out for her, for taking her for ice cream, whatever. I just wasn't at a place to be able to do that. And so I want us to give ourselves grace for that, right? Like we all did the best that we could in the situation. And now it's really big of everybody to be able to be like, you know what, I can see my wrongs. I can apologize. I can, you know, and now we can move forward for the betterment or whatever of our children. So I think that's a great lesson of just, I think today we learned like support system is necessary, giving yourself grace is necessary, looking out for your children is necessary, and parenting is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like our situation, getting over stuff is not easy, pushing past those emotions to get where you are today. Um, you should definitely give yourself a pat on the back because that's a big thing. Like I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Divine can relate to you, Brandy, like when it
Yeah,
came to like, like the other parent's spouse, like kind of feel like you're taking their spot, like,
yeah,
and looking back at that, I'm like, oh girl, like I understand why you felt how you felt, cause like, girl, you not taking credit for what I did.
right,
Yeah,
right,
so I was gonna say we definitely went through that, and that's what I was saying. I definitely apologize for overstepping my boundaries as like a step parent. There's definitely boundaries that you have to keep, especially respecting the mother of the child. There that's their number one right there. So if you can't respect the mom, then that's a big that's a big red flag.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad that through everything, we can kind of be that representation. I know it's hard when you don't have that representation and it's new territory. And like you said, you
yeah,
kind of have to have those difficult conversations, putting those, big feelings to the side, but also sitting with them and figuring out. I know Brandy always tells me this, like, sit with your feelings. Like, it's bigger than that. Why are you feeling that? And like, it really is so true sometimes because it don't even be about why you're mad. And
yeah,
sometimes that's hard to kind of face
yeah,
as an individual. And a lot of shame comes, around, self-judging yourself and
yeah,
how you should be and how you should communicate and co-parent. So I definitely agree that boundaries are important in families and co-parenting and multiple dynamic families. So yeah, I definitely appreciate you coming on here, and I'm glad that we can kind of shed light to the youth and the younger moms who may be in similar situations, because it's not easy. But I love that we can kind of give hope and knowing that like whatever season you're going through or getting out of or beginning, like that is not the end.
right,
Seasons come and go, and so I think it's so important to just continue to have hope, grace for yourself and the other person,
yeah,
because it's easier said than done, but it is achievable, and we're all capable of greatness. So yeah.
yeah. And just remember, last nugget, m- anger is a secondary emotion. If we are angry at somebody else, it is not the primary. This is where this comes from, where what I share with
Yeah,
Divine. Because
just
if we
just
sit
bring
with
on
last,
the wheel the next time. Next
right.
time you just need to
Oh
have the
yes.
steering wheel.
Yes, in our meetings, sometimes I hit them with the feelings wheel. Okay, how are you feeling right now, right? Because the reality is that were any of us ever really angry with one another or with another parent or with whatever? Probably not really anger. Like underneath the anger is like maybe I'm anxious or maybe I'm feeling inadequate. Like I can't provide a two-parent household for my child, or I can't provide a second, you know, sibling for my child, or I can't provide a house for my child and they have you know, two incomes or whatever it is. Or maybe it's, your own past traumas. Like I remember my my dad's ex-wife would talk so bad about my mom and I'm like,
Mm,
girl, bye. That's
right.
what you're not about to do, right? But then I think I probably brought some of that like trauma or whatever into that and thinking like, you better not be talking about me because, you know, you're not going to, or like even some fear, right? Like, I don't want like the fear of my child coming to me one day and being like, I want to move out. I want to go move with my other parent or something. Like, there's so much
Oh my
more. It's
God.
not just about anger. There's so much more underneath. And I think if we consider that in all aspects of life and parenting and discipline and just in life, I think that we'll be able to, you know, take care of ourselves a little bit better. So anyways, thank you, Leandra, for joining us today. Thank you all for listening and all the things. As always, if you have questions for her, if you have questions for any of us, drop them. Like, share,
Yes.
all the things.
And this is just the intro. If y'all want that real spicy baby mama, baby daddy drama, leave a comment below. Because episode 2, it only gets realer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We went easy on y'all today
Yeah.
with the tea.
So thank you guys for having me. I would definitely say it was a great experience. And yeah, like Divine said, this is definitely just the beginning. No, you got like just like comment for the tea, clock that tea.
Right. What questions do you have?
But yeah, it's definitely not an easy journey like where we got to today, but it's definitely possible. It's how much you want to put forth, how much effort you want to put towards the relationship that your child has with, you know, their sibling and putting your emotions to the side. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
a great chat.
Yes.
Until
Thank
next
you
time.
again.
Yeah.
Bye.
If you enjoyed the Up podcast, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment.
And visit youngunitedparents.org for the information, community, and resources young moms and dads need to thrive.